Welcome to Liner Notes. My name is David Bixler.
The last several years have brought about significant change for Loren Stillman. A lifelong New Yorker, Loren and his family did a 180 and moved to Montana several years ago. With the time afforded to him by the pandemic, Loren, having made a name for himself as an alto saxophonist, focused his energies on the tenor. The fruit of his labor is a new recording, Time and Again, released on Sunnyside Records, featuring himself on the tenor, along with bassist Drew Gress and drummer Mark Feber. In this episode of Liner Notes, Loren speaks about the significant changes in his musical and personal life, as well as the place that he envisions the tenor will have in his music going forward. Loren Stillman, welcome to Liner Notes. Good to see you. And we are here to talk about your new record, Time and Again, on Sunnyside Records. Congratulations on an excellent record. And good to see you, man.
Great to see you, too. Thank you for having me, David.
My pleasure. My pleasure. You know, a couple things that I want to jump in right away. This is your first record in almost a decade, I read. And you are playing exclusively tenor saxophone on it. And I remember, 5-6 years ago, you came and did a master class at Bowling Green, and you brought your alto, but you said you've been only playing tenor at that point. So maybe talk about this, the change. Are you still playing alto? I mean, I can see it behind you, I think. What gives? What's going on?
What's going on? Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's great to see you. And it's been, 5 or 6 years. Yeah, let's just pick up where we left off, I guess. So, yeah, I brought my alto to Bowling Green. Yes, I'm still playing my alto quite a bit, playing all three, actually. And, the last time I saw you, I was just starting to really practice the tenor because I finally owned one. And I thought, hey, why not? I've never messed with this. My thinking about the tenor, and yes, this album features me just playing tenor, but my thoughts, my long-term goals with the tenor is to really fuse a concept of one instrument between all three, So at some point, and I think this will be my next record, hopefully not a decade from now, where all three are present. But I don't know, I really took the time to focus on the tenor and just be like, it's the sound and intonation and the vibe of the tenor is just as important as everything I've done on the alto and the soprano up to this point. And I really need to just concentrate on this. And of course, we've never fully arrived as musicians and I'm still struggling with it, but it feels more comfortable than it has 5 years ago. It continues to be a challenge, but I find something new about the saxophone every day playing the tenor now that still surprises me and provides new insight into how to play the instrument. So really, the long-term goal is to utilize all three of these as one singular voice and one sort of singular extension of range. So that's what I'm practicing, really. Every day I'm practicing all three. And if I'm practicing a tune or writing etudes for myself, which I like to do a lot, try to switch amongst the registers and try to make it feel like the switch between the saxophones is not this tenor, alto, soprano, but this unified voice.
Do you find that it's changing your approach to alto and soprano? I mean, I know you spoke of trying to fuse the three together, but is there, like in a relationship, there's a give and take. So if you want to fuse these three together, I'm assuming that your alto cannot stay where it's been for the, past 30 years or however long you've been playing.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, it's changing everything, which is good. I needed that. I needed a kick in a different direction with the alto, and I feel like the tenor is really providing that. I will say that for many years, it dawned on me that I felt like a tenor player playing alto because so much of my ideas and energy and flow on the instrument was coming from a more tenor direction. And when I got the tenor, I was like, okay, what's it like to be a tenor player playing tenor? instead of being a tenor player playing alto. Because as an alto player, I always gravitated more towards tenor players. I mean, of course, there's the obvious, like everybody says I sound like bits of Lee Konitz or whatever. I mean, there is that as well. But man, I feel like more than half the influence on alto came from tenor for me. So it's a nice connection. And I'm bringing bits, things from the alto to the tenor. Makes me approach the tenor a little differently as well. So
What kind of time frame was it before you didn't feel like an alto player playing tenor and like felt like you had a sound and, were just present with the instrument?
Jeez. I don't know. Almost immediately, I felt like I was getting a sound on the tenor, but I think that was a false recognition of what was actually happening. Do you know what I mean? I picked it up and I was like, oh, wow, this isn't so bad. This is easy. Okay, yeah. The alto is so demanding. I mean, I feel like as far as pitch and control and everything, alto requires something that the tenor doesn't, maybe. But anyway, going back to my initial response, which was far too oversimplified. It was like the initial sound that I was like in love with and the initial feeling that I was in love with. And then I realized, oh, no. I am not there at all. I really need to investigate this instrument. And from there, it became practicing the overtones and getting that upper register and all the registers, just like you do with any new instrument, new saxophone, whatever, just trying to gain fluidity and comfort within all of the registers, intonation-wise. And it was back to the basics again. It was back to the beginning, which I loved. I still love it. I'm like grooving on it because it's like picking up the saxophone for the first time.
Are all your setups similar to make this transition seamless as possible?
Yeah, the setups are pretty similar to one another.
It was interesting. I found a review, and I'm not going to name the source or the reviewer, but on this recording for Time and Again, it's just a great review, but it has you listed as playing alto saxophone, and then he talks about alto saxophonist Loren Stillman in the review of this record. Which, I just wanted to
I knew this was going to be a problem.
I wanted to throw that out there. Well, you've had some high-profile gigs, Charlie Hayden and Paul Motion. You are like the people that you've been playing with. Were they surprised that you were playing tenor, or the people that checked you out on alto? Your quote-unquote fans. If there are jazz fans. Are people said like, why are you playing tenor? Have you been asked that question?
Yeah, I've been accosted by many, onlookers to some gigs and recordings and Facebook and Instagram. We have too many tenor players. Why are you playing tenor? We like you on alto. Don't play tenor. It's like, come on. Give me a break.
Yeah.
Play what you want to play. I mean, Joe Lovano plays everything, man. Like here's a guy who plays tenor, alto, soprano, clarinets, flutes, whatever. I mean, no one's giving him a hard time. So,
well, man, I've never heard of the concept that you have of the three, of making kind of like a seamless range. I think that's really cool, and I'm looking forward to hearing that next recording. But onto this one, your bandmates, Drew Gress on the bass and Mark Feber on the drums. I read that you met in Ralph Alessi's band a number of years ago. And so had you been playing with these cats on alto as a trio? Because I did see that you did a recording a number of years ago on alto that was a trio recording. I don't think these guys were on it.
No, those guys were not on it. But I stole Ralph Alessi's band out from under him, basically. No, I mean, he's got so many bands. But I had known Drew since I was a teenager. So playing with Drew was not like a new thing for me. And he played on another record of mine with Joey Barron, which I really loved. And then Mark Feber and I have been playing, probably equally the same amount of time. But I had never played with Mark and Drew together until Ralph brought them together. So here are these two players that I have known for a very long period of time. I've been on the road with Mark for years and years and just absolutely love his playing. And we've got this connection when we play that only two musicians can have when they've traveled this much together and we've played in so many different bands. And then I played with Ralph and I felt this energy with Drew and Mark where I was like, whoa, okay, I've never felt Mark play like that before. And it was sort of the energy of Drew that propelled him to do this different thing and play differently. And I was like, wow, this is a heavy trio, and it always stuck with me. It didn't happen immediately that I was able to get this band together, but it always stuck with me, the energy and the vibe and the feeling that the two of them captured together. They play so well together. They complement each other so well. That I had to do something, and then this opportunity came up to make a new record. I wasn't playing alto really, primarily just tenor. And I was like, well, it's a good opportunity to make a tenor record. And tenor was like a pandemic project. We had 2 years of nothing. And I was like, better, why not shed a new instrument and get better at saxophone in a different way, a different angle. And then out of the pandemic came this recording and a new body of music. So I can't remember the original question. I kind of went off on a tangent.
No, all good. Was this music written specifically for this date and for the tenor?
Some yeah, some no. I would say half and half. Some of it was like older, sitting in the pile, and then about half of it was brand new stuff that was written for the tenor and just specifically for this trio. Some of it was written for this old band that I had with guitar, organ, and drums, and didn't really work out in that context. And it just sort of sat there, and how composition is. It just sort of sits collecting dust sometimes until the right situation presents itself. And it's like, oh yeah, that's trio music. That's not quartet music. So that's sort of how a few of the tunes played out.
And so they would have been like, quote unquote, alto tunes, if from this previous band.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alto tunes. Yeah.
Very cool. I love the compositions and the whole sound of the group. The counterpoint. I don't know what's written, what's dictated in the bass part, and with the melody, but it's really cool. Good stuff.
That's what I love about playing trio.
Yeah.
Is that thing exactly? Yes.
So, going to composition, in addition to the change whereas it's not really a change, but the addition of tenor, you also moved from New York City to Montana a number of years ago, and you got a degree in composition. And I'm just curious, how did that change? You probably weren't doing jazz composition, but I'm curious how that experience changed your approach to, composition specifically, and maybe just music in general, like how you think about music as an improviser.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good opportunity to investigate composition from a different angle, which was not a jazz-based angle, more of like counterpoint, and writing things for violin and cello and solo instruments. I wrote a lot of music for like solo flute and solo cello, piano, a solo guitar piece. It was a good opportunity to learn, ranges and timbre of instruments, whatnot, things that I hadn't really had the time to investigate before. But mainly the approach was like, okay, let's stop writing chord changes and see what happens when we write counterpoint instead. And a lot came from that period and has really influenced and changed my writing quite a bit. Of course, with the trio format, you have a lot more space to create counterpoint within the bass part and the saxophone part that doesn't need to be dictated by chord changes. So it, provides quite a bit of freedom harmonically. Yeah. So it's an approach that, I really enjoy right now. The sort of ambiguity of harmony and how it can be changed spontaneously and not having a chordal player there to dictate any of that, that the fluidity of the harmony can be between two single note instruments, two single note voices, rather than a mesh of, 7 notes or 10 notes or 5 notes, whatever. It just leaves you with a lot more open space, much like living in Montana.
Well, I'm sure that, it affects like how you're thinking about music. Definitely, man. You're enjoying it out there.
I really enjoy it. Yeah. I have 2 kids. They love living out here. There's so much for them to do outdoors. We're not having issues with screens and video games, and it's pretty old school. They're outdoors every day, and they love it. Hiking, backpacking, kayaking. It's a big change from New York City, but it was a welcome change, that's for sure.
Well, it seems cool because looking at your schedule, it looks like it hasn't slowed you down in what you're doing. Maybe you miss like being able to do like last minute gig in the city or something, but you're back. You're in Europe. Are you spending a lot of time like trying to push this trio and get this record out? I think you were just in Europe, kind of touring this music. No.
Yeah. I wasn't able to do it with the people on the record with Drew and Mark, but I picked up with some European musicians. We lived in Cologne in Germany for a year between living in Montana and returning to Montana. So we lived in Cologne in Germany for 1 year, and then the pandemic hit, and we were like, oh God, time to go.
Okay.
Bit of a disaster, but I met a lot of people in Germany. I had already known a lot of people in Germany, so I feel like there's a strong musical connection to Europe now at this point in my life, where like I know the people who I like to play with over there. I've got a rapport with, and so anyway, I went over, and most of the tour was teaching actually. So I was teaching at a lot of universities, doing workshops, and then a handful of gigs, but it was really more like a teaching tour than anything else.
And speaking of teaching, you are unveiling a new project. You want to explain a little bit about that? Studying with Loren Stillman.
Yeah, come study with me on Patreon. I'm hoping, or not hoping, but I'm actively pursuing a Patreon page where videos will go up, lesson videos will go up for subscription, and there will be different tiers involved in what you can do and how much you want to be involved with me. But, some of it is just watching videos and getting educational content from that, but also you can then take lessons, you can get analysis on your playing, and then there's also a interface. It's going to interface with Google Classrooms at a certain tier where we can do sort of a back and forth, a bit like the model that now I'm like Gary Dial and Charlie Menakis, kind of a bit like that, where like I don't think anybody, well, a lot of people didn't meet Charlie Menakis, but they would send tapes to him, and then Charlie would send a tape back saying, "I think this is what you need to work on, and this would be a good lesson plan." So kind of a little bit along those lines, maybe like not as informal, maybe a little bit more, formal, and just sort of a sharing of ideas back and forth on Google Classrooms, which has been a pretty cool interface to use with students all over the place. I find it really useful, and learned about it through the pandemic, and I continue to use it. So yeah, Patreon. Hopefully January 1st is when the whole thing will launch.
Saxophone students make a New Year's resolution. Before I let you go, man, what's next? Another record for this trio, something with all three instruments.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping to do